Hi guys, what's up? It's Lauren, and today I am doing a very exciting video for me. So today's video is a how I paid off my debt story, and I was considering if I should film this or not, just because I have filmed a lot of videos on my student loan journey and how I'm paying off loans and how I've saved money, and I've done a lot of videos like that, so I wasn't sure if I should film another video that is pretty similar, but or if I should just mention this in like a vlog video. But I really wanted to make a whole video on this, so if you guys are new to my channel, this is going to be all new information, but if you guys are subscribers to my channel, this might be a little bit of the same info you've watched from past videos. But I thought it was a really exciting announcement to share, and I kind of wanted to explain my journey, how I got debt free, what I did, where I was, and yeah, it's really exciting because I was able to do this in 18 months, and I think that's a crazy amount of time, and I kind of wanted to share my journey the past 18 months and what I've done. So I first wanted to get started and talk a little bit about my story, how much debt I was in, where my debts came from, all of that stuff. So if you guys are new, my name is Lauren and I am 23 years old, and I graduated from college 2 years ago in December of 2018. So I graduated a semester early, and that was something that I did to save money. I had student loan debt like most college American students, and I graduated with around $34,000. It's in the low 30s. I don't have the specific number, but around $34,000 in student loan debt. And for me, that was definitely a lot of money. I know that's around the national average, actually. I believe the national average is around $30,000. So I was around the average amount of debt. I know that everyone's stories are very different. Some people have 6 figures of debt, some people have no debt, but again, this is just my personal story and what I did. Obviously, this isn't cookie cutter to every person, but I just think that explaining and sharing my story could be helpful for people, and you could take bits and pieces from it. So I did go to a private university, which was my choice. I knew that I was going to graduate with college debt. I had a college savings account since I was born, which I'm very grateful for. And a lot of the money that I had growing up from like birthdays and graduations and confirmations, communions, all of that stuff was put into my college savings. So growing up, I really never saw any money come into my bank account because it was always going towards college. So that's something that I'm very grateful for now, and I would have been obviously in so much more debt if I didn't have that account. $34,000 to me was a lot of money because I was never in debt before, and I graduated when I was pretty young. I graduated a few months after I turned 21, and for most people I feel like that's on the younger side of graduating with a 4-year degree, because I started school at 17, college at 17 technically, so I was pretty young for my grade. Alrighty, so when I graduated, I knew that I wanted to pay off my debt pretty quickly, so I graduated early. I had a lot of credits from high school, and I loved college. I was very upset to be graduating early. It was a really hard decision, but now I'm so grateful I did. I would have still been in debt, so I'm so happy that I decided to graduate early, and I got a full-time job in February of 2019, so about a month and a half after I graduated. Started commuting to New York City and starting my corporate job. I wasn't making a ton of money, which I know that that's something that helps a lot of people. If they come out of school and they're making a good amount of money, they could pay off their loans quicker. But for me, I was not really making much money at all, so I couldn't even afford to move out when I first graduated. I would probably be making ends meet if I graduated and moved out to New York City, considering New York City is so expensive. I wanted to kind of just do the commute for a little while and be able to move out when I can afford it. So that's what I did. My whole motivation behind paying off my debt was that, number one, I'm definitely scared of debt. Definitely am very good with my money, and debt really freaks me out. So that was a huge motivation. And also number two was I told myself I couldn't move out of my house until I paid off all of my debt. And that was something I held myself to, and I was not going to break. So that was a huge motivation for me to pay off my debt. And I gave myself 3 years to pay off my debt. I told myself by 24 I'm having this paid off. So a year and a half was definitely crazy. So I graduated obviously 2 years ago, but my loans started 6 months after my graduation date, which is what happens with most people. So it started in around May or June of 2019 is when my loans actually kicked in and I had to start making payments on them. And I had 2 private loans and 1 public loan. And the private loans have a way higher interest rate than the public loans typically. So I saw my loan amount, I knew it was $34,000. I looked at the 3 loans that I had. They were all around 11 grand, so they were pretty split into 3. And I started doing a little bit more research. I looked at the Dave Ramsey plan and kind of saw how he was, you know, how he goes about paying debt and tackling debt. I definitely didn't follow as strict of guidelines as he gives, but I did decide to do, I think it was is it the avalanche or the snowball? I really am not being helpful in this video, but he has 2 different techniques to paying off debt, the avalanche and the snowball effect. So I think the snowball is when you pay your smallest debts off into your biggest debts. So if you have like a 2 grand loan, you pay that off before like your 10 grand loan. I think I did the avalanche one where I literally just paid the highest interest loan first because mine were all even payments, so for me it didn't matter. So I looked at my interest rates and they were around 8% per loan for my private, and then for my public they were around 3%. So 8% obviously gains more interest quicker. So I paid off my 8% loan first, and I went loan by loan. I focused in to not overwhelm myself on one loan at a time. So I paid off my first $11,000 loan, and then my next $11,000 loan, and then I paid off my final $11,000 loan back in December. So it's been about a month since I paid that one off, and that was my public loan. So I'm gonna get into a little bit more information of how I paid these off. That's a little bit of my backstory, but I think that it's definitely gonna be helpful if I kind of explain to you guys exactly what I did. Again, this doesn't fit for everyone and not everyone's gonna be in the same situation as me, but I definitely think that I've done some things that could be helpful. Alright, so one of the first things that I did, and I think this is like the #1 thing that helped me pay them off so quickly, and I know not everyone can do this, but if you can, I can't stress it enough. And the #1 thing was living at home and commuting to work. So I know that that's definitely something that not a lot of people want to do. They don't want to be living and commuting crazy hours. It's definitely a little bit taxing, or very taxing I would say, on my health. If you guys don't know my story, I live outside of New York City. I'm in commuting distance of New York City, but I am definitely on the farther side of the commute, if that makes sense. I'm like one of the like later stops on the train and stuff like that. So door to door I would take a car, subway, and train to get into the city, and it would take 2 hours there and 2 hours back. So I was commuting about 20 hours a week, 4 hours a day, just to get to my job that wasn't that much, like paying me that much money. And I knew that it was a very temporary thing and I wasn't going to be doing that forever, but I did that for 13 months before Corona hit. So from February 2019 to March of 2020, I was commuting 20 hours a week, which was awful. If I have to be honest, I was miserable doing that. I was always tired. I was sleeping, like would fall asleep so easily because I was consistently tired. I was so stressed out. It definitely was very a big toll on me. I really don't know how people do commutes like that for years and years. That was the thing that I did, and honestly, as much as I hated it, it definitely was worth it. And every day I was on that train, I told myself that I was working towards something, because I was. And I was very proud of myself that I was able to do it for that long. A lot of my friends didn't even try commuting, or they didn't last very long, because it definitely was a pretty hard commute from where I lived, especially in the snow and all that crazy stuff. The commute was definitely a lot of money still. I paid $480 a month in commuting expenses, which I know is rent for some people in the United States, but for New York, rent is definitely not $480 a month. It's way more than that. So I was paying a lot in commuting expenses, but I also was just like not paying that amount of rent. Like rent is definitely way more than $480. So I was saving myself a lot of money doing that. And I also graduated early, like I said before. That saved me a lot of money too, but I know not everyone has that option. So with also living at home, I didn't have to pay like Wi-Fi and electric. And then another thing which was kind of nice too was that when it came to like family meals and things, my parents obviously were cooking for my brother and I and for the family, so I would get a lot of free dinners out of that. Or if my mom just bought eggs for the house, I had eggs. So it wasn't like I had to buy a lot of groceries all the time, which was another thing I was really grateful for. And then another thing that I did was I made a budget every month. I was very good about paying the highest amount of my debt off. So for example, like you can have payment plans when you're doing your loans, and I always did the highest paying payment plan. So I was like paying like $450 a month in student loans between my 3 loans, because I would always do like the highest paying plan, the most aggressive plan. That was something that I also did just to kind of, you know, cut away with money as best as I could. And I also just am overall pretty good with my money, you know, wasn't spending my money on all these crazy clothes and stuff like that. I also had YouTube as a second source of income. Not necessarily, YouTube does not make me a lot of money. I can't do this as a full-time job, but I was able to make some side cash from YouTube, and I would usually put my side cash to my student loans for YouTube. So even just picking up a side hustle or side hobby can be really helpful, and I'm so glad I had YouTube as that like second source of income to help me pay off my loans, because this definitely helped speed up the process for me. Another thing that really helped cut my time in half, I think that I would have had to take the full 3 years if it wasn't for COVID. COVID cut all of my commuting expenses. I was lucky in the sense where COVID helped me financially. I know that obviously most people it really did not, and I was just lucky in that sense that I was able to not have to commute anymore, so it helped me so much with my commuting expenses. I didn't have to be paying that $480 a month, so it saved me like $5 grand. Also during COVID I didn't really do much, so I wasn't paying money to go out to eat and go on trips and all this stuff that I would have done if COVID didn't hit. So that's one thing that actually helped me pay off my debt quicker, was I wasn't really spending much money. I was, you know, I was grateful enough that I still had my job and I was making my income, and I wasn't really spending much money at all. Just my necessary bills that I had to pay every month, but I didn't really, you know, spend money on food and all this crazy other stuff. And I know that a lot of people went crazy with like the online shopping when COVID first hit. I didn't really do that much. I would get myself something here and there, but I really didn't spend on big items. So those are some stuff that I did to pay off my student loans. I was so focused on getting these loans paid off. I think that you just have to really be very determined to pay off your loans. You need to be very confident in paying off your loans, and you need to set a time frame for yourself and budget around that time frame. So there were some weekends where my friends were doing stuff and I was like, I can't drop all of that money and do that. So I would, you know, opt out of, you know, going somewhere, or opt out of going out to eat, or I would say no to certain things and stay home on the weekend because I didn't want to spend all of that money. And I would just throw any money I could at my loans. If I got extra money for my birthday, or when we got the stimulus check, for example, all of that stuff went straight to my student loans. I did not spend that on random stuff. I know when people got stimulus checks, they would spend money on random things if they didn't need to spend it on rent and stuff, but I put that right to my student loans. Also, the student loan payments were frozen on public loans since March, so that helped me a lot because I haven't had to pay that public loan since March as well. So COVID, student loan wise, definitely worked in my favor. But yeah, that was kind of everything I did. I just think overall I don't have like tons of crazy tips, but it's just really budgeting and having that confidence that you're going to pay it off and that you're going to make this a goal. Obviously I could have just moved out and I could have just lived with a friend right out of school and not lived at home, but I would be paying these probably till I was in my 30s, to be honest, because I wouldn't have this disposable income to just throw at a loan. But whenever you get disposable income, just throw that right at a loan. Just don't even think about it. If you see something cute, just don't even buy it. Like, you just have to have a lot of self-control, and I'm pretty good at that. I'm very good at my self-control when it comes to money. I think it's fear-based because I hate being in debt. But anyways, guys, this video is getting kind of rambly. I'm sorry if it was very boring. Yeah, that was my story. If you guys have any questions or any experiences yourself or anything like that, please leave those down below. I am, you know, on this journey and I'm debt-free now, 2021. I'm very excited to share that. And yeah, so anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys all in my next video.